Hi, I didn't invent this. It has always been like this. And it will always be like this. There has always been the possibility of embodied language, but since we have never acknowledged that possibility, we're all still stuck in disembodied language. I'm going to read to you what I've written, and it's very simple, but it is very instructive in the sense that unless you do as I am describing in this text, you will not have embodied language. So the first thing that matters in embodied language is, of course, the sound of your own voice. You speak and you hear yourself while you speak. And are you able to unequivocally say to yourself that you like to hear how you sound? Do you like to hear what you say? If you don't, and most likely you don't, you are engaging in disembodied language. And you are not listening to yourself because you don't want to listen to yourself. You don't like to hear what doesn't sound good. You don't like to hear what doesn't mean anything to you, what doesn't matter to you, what makes you feel awkward. You like to hear what makes sense to you. So, secondly, in embodied language, you say things which matter to you, which are dear to you, which you like to say, and further explore. Because the more embodied language you have, the more you will discover. And it's all up to you to do this, because if you do not do this, it's not going to happen. Surely, to have embodied language, you must already have stopped, you must already have stopped your disembodied language. So, therefore, you must be just as, how do you say that? Oh, you must be just as clear about what you don't want to say as you have to be about what you want to say. You must be just as clear about how you don't want to sound and how you want to sound. And unless you get clear on that, you will not have embodied language. You will continue, whether you know it or not, whether you address it or not, whether you understand it or not, you will continue with your usual disembodied language, which means you are engaging in a way of talking, you are engaging in language which is not to your liking and which therefore is working against you. So to have embodied language, do you hear the train? You must already have stopped your disembodied language, and therefore you must be just as clear about what you don't want to say or hear and what you want to say and hear. Most people, they are at least somewhat interested in the latter, right? We all want what we supposedly want, yeah? We all want to say basically what we want to say. And supposedly that is all that matters. But they are they are inclined to skip the former. They are inclined to, not want to bother with the fact that what they don't want to say. They are inclined to skip over or to completely, forget about the fact that it is important that there's a lot that they don't want, and that what they don't want needs to be stopped. That is, they want the latter, they want to say what they want to say, but they want the latter as an escape from the former. So, but that is not how embodied language works. Because embodied language is not an escape from disembodied language. To the contrary, in order to be able to have embodied language, you must be totally accepting and understanding of your own disembodied language. And here comes something really intriguing. You are inclined to treat your disembodied language as yours, yeah? You are inclined to say, oh, that's dreadful, that is, I don't want to be busy with that misery, I don't want to hear that stuff, that conflict, that stuff that I keep repeating and that I have already heard so many times. I don't want to be busy with that. And I want to escape from that. And yet you consider it your problem. You consider it your, you consider it yours. Yeah? Your depression, your confusion, your anxiety, your fear, your hatred, your stress. And so this is what is totally wrong about how you misunderstand your disembodied language. Disembodied language isn't yours. Disembodied language is a group behavior. And only when you have embodied language, you acquire individual behavior, which you can say, yeah, this is really mine. So what matters is that you treat your disembodied language as a group behavior. And unless you treat your disembodied language as a group behavior, rather than a behavior which is performed by you as an individual, for which you are therefore individually responsible, because that goes together with it, right? That you are responsible for all of that. No, you're not. You're not responsible for that group behavior. You're responsible for your embodied language. So your disembodied language will not stop unless you treat it as it is. Yeah, it is a group behavior. And therefore, you cannot make any deals with your disembodied language. And you have to completely reject it again and again, every time it wears its end, because it is your conditioning history. We have all been conditioned with disembodied language. And this is not a rejection of yourself, because that is how you tend to feel it. If you reject your disembodied language, you tend to feel as if you're rejecting a part of yourself. No, you are rejecting the group which created and maintained your disembodied language. And your ability to have embodied language is based on your courage to stand alone and to be separate from any group. And such courage isn't, of course, immediately available. Yeah? So you have to also accept initially that you are conditioned, that you are again and again falling back into your disembodied language, and that you are a coward for backing out of your own embodied language, because you will discover that there is a difference between listening to yourself while you speak and having embodied language, and not listening to yourself while you speak. Being busy with listening to others and making others listen to you, but you're not listening to yourself while you speak, that is disembodied language. So you will notice that difference, but you will not be able to continue with your embodied language unless you acknowledge your own part in again and again caving in when it comes to the pressure of disembodied language. And what I mean by that is that there are, of course, circumstances in which your disembodied language is triggered. So are you going to get out of these circumstances? Are you going to move yourself? Are you going to allow yourself to create again the contingency in which embodied language can and will happen? Or will you remain stuck in that old contingency of disembodied language where you have to listen to others or make others listen, and that's all that your language has to offer? It doesn't involve listening to yourself. Disembodied language doesn't involve listening to yourself. So you have to totally accept that these regressions, if you will, to disembodied language keep on happening. And yes, as you get further, as you have caught yourself a couple of times, you realize like, okay, this is just my conditioning, and I cannot compromise on it. I just have to accept it, that I am conditioned like this. I was conditioned by the group behavior that is disembodied language. And so whenever you are again in disembodied language, you want to again fit in, you want again to be important and to rise to the top of the social ladder. And you are again acting according to the expectations of the group. And these expectations, of course, you have of yourself. So to step away from the group, you must also stop all the expectations of yourself. Because all the expectations that you have of yourself are expectations of the group. And all the expectations of yourself are in fact a betrayal of yourself and a betrayal of your ability to have embodied language. So in embodied language, you're not having any expectation. You're having embodied language without any expectation.